And good evening. Thank you for tuning in on Let's Talk Real Talk. And today we are going to speak on the war on Ukraine with Dr. Reagan um, and Andy Martens. Welcome, Andy, and welcome, Dr. Reagan. Thank you for tuning in with joining us here. This is our third program with Dr. Reagan, and she's here to share what's happening on the streets of Ukraine today. And Andy and I are going to be here to ask a few questions. So, Andy, welcome back today.
Hey, thanks, Mary. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than with you here.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
for having me. Thank you very much for having me again.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming back. So, Dr. Reagan, tell us what's been happening since our last podcast together.
Well, as you know, the last time when we spoke, I was giving you a little bit of the history, and I had mentioned, one of the things I had said is the only way for a just peace was to have regime change in the Kremlin. And if you remember, I had mentioned about how a lot of the MAGA people were creating a lot of anti or Kremlin talking points and propaganda against Ukraine. Uh, and what happened was Trump's pastor had gone to Ukraine and saw firsthand how horrible things were happening. For example, lately there have been many attacks in Kyiv. There was also recently an attack in Chernihiv, which is on the western part of Ukraine, right near Lviv, and there was a lot of damage. And this was a very quiet town, and so was Lviv in the western part, and even that's being hit with Shahed drones and other missiles. I mean, it's really bad. I was just witnessing a woman who was telling, she's a young dancer, and she happened to be saying, she was on her video, she happened to be saying that her family and her are thinking about being forced to leave because they live in Chernihiv, and now they keep getting attacks where a lot of times they have to go into bomb shelters, and it's just really bad. I mean, a lot of the people wind up in bomb shelters, especially children, or they have to spend nights in the hallway. They get a lot of sleepless nights, and what it's really doing is it's really impacting their mental health, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, we know Putin is a war criminal. He's wanted by the Hague. He's kidnapped about something like 20,000 Ukrainian children, uh, which is a war crime, and brought them to that country, which is kind of akin to the history what I mentioned in my last podcast when I mentioned about the Holodomor, and which was the fake famine that a lot of the Ukrainians had experienced under Stalin in the 20s, 30s, and 40s in the 1900s. And also the genocide that was against the Crimean Tatars in 1944. And this war has been going on since 2014, since the Euromaidan protest against Yanukovych and against the Kremlin regime. And of course, the full-scale invasion started in 2022, February 24th. And it's just been genocide after genocide. And according to the Geneva Convention, genocide is the deliberate erasing of a nation of people through forced deportation of children, occupation, erasing the language, culture, and literature, and which is what Russia has been doing to the Ukrainian nation, starting in 2014, but really expedited since the invasion. And one of the things that's been happening to the people on the streets of Ukraine is many times that they have to make a decision whether they're going to sleep in their bed or they're going to go to a bomb shelter. And many children get bombed and killed while they're sleeping in their beds. And this is something that we really need to get out to the public. This is happening every day in Ukraine. The constant genocide and terrorism has resulted in many deaths, injuries, increases of persons with physical and mental disabilities, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and many other horrible things. Families are being separated. and it's having a very, very bad impact, especially on children.
Right.
Uh, it's just really, I mean, have many times the children are getting very scared, and they wind up having nightmares because they hear the Shahed drones, they hear the horrible sounds of missiles, and no
Yeah.
kid with that. No kid should have to do.
No. My mother's 93 and she still hears it from the Second World War.
Yeah.
It's never ending. So our children are going to be damaged for the rest of their lives. I heard just recently today, another 6-year-old was killed during the bombing from Russia last
Mhm.
night.
Yeah.
Russia sustained the devastation of the tsunami there, but they're still bombing.
Yeah, and that's what in
And it
Kamchatka.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the tsunami occurred in Kamchatka, which is the
Yeah.
very, very eastern part. I think east of Siberia, and it's amazing that Russia's economy right now is less than the economy of Texas, and which is a state versus a country. And their economy, their inflation is double digits, and yet they're still bombing. It's
And
it's
they're
like
still bombing.
they don't care.
They
Uh,
don't care. This is just so sad. These are our governments that simply do not care about the people. Like they're supposed to be there for the people,
mhm.
not for themselves. And they're all got their hands in their pockets, digging deep to take away all the taxpayers' money, all the Medicare, and all the other things. And let's bomb the people so we could start all over and have the land to ourselves. I mean, isn't that what happened back in the time, the empire's time during Hungary, where everybody decided to take a piece of Hungary, like Ukraine, Prague, all of them, little countries, and
And
Hungary gave it up. And now
yeah,
we've got Orban, the new president of Hungary, destroying it.
well, Orban
So
is the prime minister. The president actually is pro-Ukraine. She's pro-Ukraine, but Orban has more power than she is, and he keeps trying to jeopardize everything he can when it comes to the European Union trying to give weapons or help to Ukraine. He always
to
stops everything
Ukraine, yes. And the other one, who was the other president? Sorry, I can't remember everybody's names, but
from uh, from
who was it?
Slovakia. I'm sorry, Fico
Yeah,
from and also Orban. Both of them are pro Kremlin, and because they get discounted oil, because remember, Russia is a gas station parading as a country,
yes.
uh, and they really have nothing else, that they don't produce anything. They have no innovation. The only thing they produce is oil and gas. So that's why I say they're a gas station pretending to be a country.
Right.
Uh, it's really, really sad because a lot of people in Ukraine, and like I was mentioning, this dancer that I saw, and also people that I know personally. I have students in Ukraine, and many of them are very depressed because all they hear is bombings and violence. Their families are being separated. There was a woman that was pregnant, and her home was totally destroyed because of a a Shahed missile, uh, Shahed drone, excuse me, and her entire home was devastated. And there she is standing there with her, with her baby in her stomach, pregnant, looking at all her life in front of her destroyed. I mean, it's horrible. And the, there's so much uncertainty about their future, their safety. There's a lot of internal displacement. There's a lot of internal refugees, a lot of homelessness, um, because of destroyed homes. Here was a country that at one time was doing very well. If I mean, I wouldn't say that they were, G7, no, but they were doing a lot better. They're very innovative. They have a lot of good engineering. They're very technologically advanced. They have a very good educational system. But because of all this bombing, their healthcare system is being interrupted. There's so many times that they've had maternity facilities, cancer hospitals, children's hospitals being bombed and destroyed, kindergartens and schools being bombed and destroyed. Uh,
That's what they do. They attack the support, all anything to do with health. They will compromise them all at the beginning, so that there's no place to go, no hospitals, no doctors, no nothing.
It's genocide. It's
Yeah,
total, and no
yeah.
one's talking about it. No one wants to use the word genocide, and that's the problem. People do not want to use the word genocide,
Hmm.
and it's a shame because it is what it is. And
Right. Didn't they bash George Clooney for that? And who was it? Oh my goodness, there's so many of them out there that were promoting it uh, against genocide. They're the movie stars.
yeah,
But yeah, they all got trashed too. So, instead of um, using the word genocide, they switched over to something else so that people can understand what the genocide really is.
yeah, and it's basically this politically correct nonsense. The left. It really is, and you have to really call it what it is. It is genocide,
It
and
is genocide.
loss is unsurmountable. And also,
Sorry, I had that call. I thought I was on mute. Apparently not. Oh, tell you. Yeah,
and
Dr. Reagan, you're partly right, but here's the problem. Um, Putin will never be replaced at this point, and he's worse than Joseph Stalin was. And it took a long time. Donald Trump wasted time. He was Putin's buddy, and now he realized that Vladimir Putin isn't cut out. He isn't honest. He isn't telling the truth. So you've got that battle there, until Trump forces Putin to end the war. I think this is going to keep going on.
yeah. And the thing is, in Slavic cultures, um, like sometimes asking for mental help is like considered is like stigmatized in a lot of Slavic cultures, which makes it even harder. For a lot of these people, to seek out the help that they really need. And it's just like, for example, a lot of the grief and the loss is just, separation of families and all that is really, really difficult. And I just think that, with trying to seek out, help, and like you said, with the political aspects of it, the politicians not caring, that's not helping. I mean,
Well, the media is not
and
focusing on it anymore. They're focused on Palestine and everything in between, kind of thing.
yeah, they're focusing on Gaza instead of focusing on Ukraine. And Ukraine has been dealing with this for 300 years, since the days of Peter and Catherine the Great. And the empire of Russia has been trying to destroy Ukraine for 300 years.
Hmm.
And Ukraine has existed, since 988, since Kievan Rus, as a beautiful culture, and their language is even older than. I mean, Russia didn't exist. Muscovy didn't exist until 1120, and the Russian language didn't exist until then. The Ukrainian language is actually older than the Russian language, and the Russians don't want to.
Well, Ukraine has had a hard time, but so has Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the Baltic
Yes,
states, with Russia
absolutely.
as well. And
Oh,
Putin may yet go into those countries
oh,
at
Estonia,
this point.
Lithuania, definitely, yeah. They've experienced horrible things. That's why they're so pro Ukraine, because they know how it feels. They know exactly how horrible Russia is. I
Exactly.
wanted to mention the democracy in Ukraine, which is amazing. Like, one thing about Zelensky, he made a mistake with that. With when he signed that law about taking the two independent anti-corruption agencies, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Specialized Anti-Corruption of Ukraine. Uh, when he took those out of being independent and putting it under the prosecutor's office, under the office of the president, that was a big mistake. But the difference is, Zelensky, being the great leader that he is and being a true servant of the people, when the people protested, he listened. That's when he went to the Verkhovna Rada, who at the time is on vacation. They usually take their vacation in July and August. He called it an urgent session and had them and redrew and redrafted another law, and it passed the Verkhovna Rada. And I think that's great. That shows how great and how amazing that their democracy is. I mean, he really truly is a servant of the people. He listened. And then when the protesters, when they heard about the new law, they all got excited. They all said, "Yay!" They're all happy. And it just goes to show you that a true democracy is when the people are actually listened to. I mean, there have been protests against the Trump administration in New York and all over in the United States, and nothing changed. But yet, when in Ukraine, when they protested, Zelensky listened. So it really proves that Zelensky listens to his people, and he really is a true servant of the people. So
Right.
I think I
Makes a
really
difference.
democracy.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when they listen.
Mm-hmm. It
Yeah.
definitely.
Like Trump, he's nothing but a dictator. He just throws
Mm-hmm.
it at you. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't listen to anybody but himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So,
you know when you look at the Ukrainians and how they don't like something, they let you know it, and
mhm.
and their leadership listens, and that's very important. And
And
you
that's the way it should be.
exactly, exactly, that's the way it should be.
Hmm.
And but we got to let people know what's really going on in Ukraine. I mean, I know the pastor of Trump went and he really saw firsthand the devastation and the things that are happening, and the targeting civilians and targeting children in their beds. But we really have to get it out. And everybody talks about Palestine, which is mostly terrorism. They're terrorist organizations in Palestine, and they talk about that, but they don't talk about Ukraine, a peaceful, loving nation who has been peaceful. Uh, they they did nothing wrong. And when they say things like expansion of NATO and all this other nonsense, the only reason NATO expanded was because Russia invaded Ukraine. That's the only reason. Otherwise, Finland and Sweden would have been neutral. They wouldn't have never joined NATO. The only reason they joined NATO is because now Finland has a long border with Russia, and Russia is building, is putting military buildups on the border, just like they did at Belarus before they invaded Ukraine. You know, so we have to really Russia has to be stopped, and we need to let people know that the people are suffering in Ukraine. And just because you see like people enjoying themselves in one area because life goes on, it
Right.
doesn't mean that people are not suffering. That children are not losing their mothers and fathers in the war. That some children without parents. That's why they have a charity called Children of Heroes, which I give to. Is one of the charities I give to, um, because of the fact that these children are, without no longer have parents, and there's so many people walking around with prosthetics and mobility aids and all this other stuff, and because of the war, and a
Right.
lot of all soldiers, a lot of them are civilians,
Yeah.
young girls and young boys. I mean,
Yeah.
little, being attacked because they're trying to break the will of the Ukrainian people. But what they don't understand, what the Russians do not understand about Ukrainians, is that's not going to help. Ukrainians are resilient. You cannot break the Ukrainian spirit. There is no way, and they, they are not going to break because of these horrible things that are happening. And the
Oh,
interesting part right now is that uh, Russia is experiencing some of the same hardships that they experienced at the end of the Cold War when the Soviet Union collapsed. They're experiencing a lot of economic struggles and loss of employment and loss of financial security and disrupted supply chains and food shortages and high prices because everything's going to the military and their infrastructure is destroyed. And then when you hear stories like in Mariupol, which is one of the temporarily occupied cities in the Donbass region, and you hear kids celebrating when they see a water truck because they have no clean water to drink, that's really bad. That's really bad. So when people hears things like that, I mean, little kids not having cold water, clean water to drink, that's really bad. And
sad.
Russia is corrupt and heartless, and it's a terrorist state. And we need to the West needs to unify, and they need to be stopped. You need to
Yes.
stop. You need to give them everything they need militarily, financially, and in every way to stop Russia. And
They've
I
been
don't.
going on far too long.
I'm sorry.
They've been going on at it for far too long.
Exactly, and it's really really terrible. They've been going at it for way too long, and uh, there's just too much suffering. It's just too much suffering. Homelessness, increases in mental and physical disabilities, um, and just and supply chains are being disrupted. And believe it or not, it's affecting the entire world because of
It is.
the supply
Economy.
chains. That it affects grocery bills and all over, even
Yeah,
in America and in Europe. It's affecting everything. The war is affecting everything.
it sure
The
is.
of just destroying agriculture that the Russians are doing. They're destroying agriculture. They're destroying everything. It's causing climate change. I mean, it's environmental disasters. It's everything. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, it's okay. Andy, you got a question?
Yeah, what about the corruption that Donald Trump was talking about back in his first term? That Ukraine was very corrupt
Uh,
before the war.
Corruption in Ukraine is has a broader definition than it has in the United States. All right, when people say corruption, it could be anything. I mean, all countries have corruption. And Donald Trump really should look in the mirror when he wants to talk about corruption.
Exactly.
That that he has done underhandedly. Like, for example, in Qatar, when he accepted a plane as a gift from an Arab country, that's not corrupt.
That's
Uh,
not corrupt. That's,
he's never
yeah,
shown his income. He makes deals that are very illegal. He's had 34 felonies against him. I would say that's pretty corrupt. The definition in Ukraine is a lot more broad than a lot of other countries, and that's why it appears that way. And don't forget, a lot of that was prior to Maidan, because when there was Russian influence, a lot of that came from the Russian oligarchs, and that's why the Ukrainians are trying to dispel that. That was one of the biggest reasons why the Orange Revolution uh, and the Revolution of Dignity took place. The Orange Revolution in 2004 took place when they were trying to get rid of Yanukovych to have a proper election with Yushchenko, because of Yanukovych's ties to the Kremlin, oligarchs, and corruption. And in 2014, the Revolution of Dignity, also known as the Maidan, Euromaidan, was also to protest against the corruption and oligarchs of the Kremlin, which Yanukovych had supported. Which originally he said he was going to put them towards the European Union, and he reneged on his promise. And that's when they called for an election, and that's when Poroshenko became president. But unfortunately, Poroshenko wasn't lily white either, because he had a lot of corruption with his business, with his chocolate business, because he did have some ties with the Kremlin and other things. So a lot of it is because of the oligarchs. But that's why we have the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, in order to dispel a lot of the corruption. And that was one of the reasons why Zelensky got elected, with his party, the Servant of the People, because uh, basically, if you remember, he had that TV show called Servant of the People, and in the TV show, he was a history teacher that went to become the president of Ukraine, and that actually came to fruition in 2019 when he actually ran for election. And that was one of the things he run on that campaign, to get rid of corruption. You're never going to get rid of corruption, because there's always going to be people that are going to do bad things.
but you can
But
expose it.
the corruption has gone down quite a bit since there's less influence of the Kremlin, because most of that came from the Kremlin. Because don't forget, it was a Soviet satellite. I mean, it was a Soviet republic from 1921. It was 1917 to 1921. They had a temporary independence, and then 1921 under Lenin, all the way to 1991, they were under the Soviet Union. So that's where I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. We got 5 minutes left. So, um, how can we help like, to be part of the protest against the war in Ukraine here in Canada? Like, are we giving enough? Is Canada helping enough? Do you know?
I think Canada could help more. I mean, I'm not saying they're not helping enough. I mean, I'm not Canadian, so I can't really
Well,
give
I
you
don't even know myself what's going on. So,
quantify that for you, but I would say that whatever Canada can do, I think would be very appreciated. I think all of the West has the G7. We all have to be united. Try to give to as many charity organizations, like some charity. Like, as you may have known, I'm in the process of with another person named Orlando. I think you already know, starting the Great Leap Forward, and eventually, we're a mental health agency, and eventually we'll, when we start getting long term, we like to help Latin America and Ukraine, and eventually we'll get into that. But in the meantime, until we get to that point, because we're just starting. In the meantime, because we're mental health and wellness and education, there are some of the agencies that you can also help with, like such as the Children of Heroes, White Stork, um, UA House, Rasm for Ukraine. All these different charities. I think that's part of what you can do. I always try to give. I mean, I give to the NAFO campaigns, North Atlantic Fellows Organization. That's based in Estonia. Because Estonia, they know how it feels, so they're based in Estonia,
Right.
and and I always give to them. And I just think that just trying to, I also have students in Ukraine, and I try to help them because I'm a business professor. So anything that we can do to market and to let people be aware of what's going on in Ukraine, and speak out, like these podcasts, and I like to do more of these podcasts to to really let people know what's going on, and really try to to push the narrative, and so that people don't listen to Tucker Carlson or some of these Kremlin talking point people, these people that are committing propaganda. I
right.
think that we need to unite in the West, and I think we need to help Ukraine militarily, financially, in humanitarian ways, any way that we can. We have to stop Russia.
Yes.
That's the bottom.
Yeah. Well, we're almost done here. Andy, do you have any more questions you'd like to ask Dr. Reagan?
Well, I'd love to give to Ukraine, and we have, and I think our current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is all for that. But right now, we have our hands full with the tariffs of Donald Trump
Yes.
starting tomorrow. And this is really starting to set back Canada
Yeah.
a lot. So I think that's the priority over everything else at the moment.
Yeah,
Well,
Trump is putting a strain on all the countries in
tariff
order to not help Ukraine, I believe. I mean, you know how he deflects and always goes around the problem. He
is
brings
the
in
intent.
another problem and another problem. So you don't think about the original problem. And the original problem was the war on Ukraine.
Yes,
And
exactly.
now we've circled around it and brought
Mhm.
everybody else into the picture. And this needs to stop because the whole world's going to end up fighting
Well,
over.
as far as the tariffs, I mean, of course, we don't want a repeat of the Hootsville tariffs of 1929, 1930s. Obviously, we don't want that because, of course,
No.
when Depression. But I think that what we do want is to try and discourage other countries to do business with Russia and support their war machine. And I think that's what Trump is trying to do. I don't know if it's the best way of doing it, but we definitely need to impose sanctions. We definitely need to stop Russia in any whatever way we can to make it that it's not economically feasible for them to continue in Ukraine. And I think that's really the point, is what we
Yeah.
have to think
Right.
about.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Reagan, thank you so much for this edition here on Let's Talk Real Talk. We'll have you back again in August, the end of last week of August. We are grateful for all your updates. And, if we keep this happening, we can make a big difference. And we send prayers out to Ukraine. I mean, we're all hoping to, you know, get peace, because who wants to? We need an end to it. We really do, because what's happening to our children worldwide is all because of war, you know, greed, and it's got to end. So until then, anyone else that has something that they would like to share or talk about to the world out here, join Andy Martens and I on Let's Talk Real Talk Show. You get to talk about whatever you need to speak about. We are here for you. Just give us a PM here on our podcast, or you can contact me at Mary_Kovacs at hotmail.com, and we will put you on the show, and you could share what you'd like. Until then, thank you, Andy Martens
All
and
right.
Dr. Reagan. Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye bye.